Tehran's air defense trying to counter the Israeli strikes just before dawn. Over 3 weeks since Iran launched ballistic missiles in the other direction. Yes, the attack was calibrated, designed so as not to provoke all-out war. But this was still the largest direct assault on Iranian soil since the Iran-Iraq war in the 80s.
I can now confirm that we have concluded the Israeli response to Iran's attack against Israel. We conducted targeted and precise strikes on military targets in Iran, thwarting immediate threats to the state of Israel. The Israel Defense Forces has fulfilled its mission.
Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli defense minister being briefed in the wee hours during the strikes. Such are the levels of aggression in this conflict now that up to 100 Israeli planes involved in striking multiple sites in Iran itself is considered at this point non-escalatory. As was promised to the US, Israel says it didn't hit oil fields or energy and nuclear infrastructure, just military targets.
The long reason we're a little late, I was on with the intelligence community for the last half hour, 3.5 hours. And it looks like they didn't hit anything other than military targets. My hope is this is the end.
First, let's look at the mechanics of the operation. F-15s and 16s take off from Israel in the early hours. It's understood that Tehran was given advanced warning through third parties, including Russia. During the week, military sites were hit in Syria, designed in part to clear the flight path to Iran. The attack started in earnest just before dawn in 3 waves.
The first wave was probably to knock out the air defense systems, the Iranian defense systems. Then came the main attack on the different targets. And then came the third wave, improving the hits if there were any misses or additional secondary targets.
Tehran has said it has a, quote, duty to defend itself, with Iranian news sources reporting that 4 soldiers were killed, no further details being given. Iranian media outlets presented the attack as limited in scope, and the fact that Tehran is playing this down is telling. Here's what calibration looked like on the outskirts of Gaza City today. A whole building destroyed as Israel pursues its stated aim of stopping Hamas regroup. At least 22 people were killed here, including Ishmael Mugat's wife and 3 small children. They are under the rubble. What you're about to watch, a father's hope died. This area is between Gaza City and Jabalia, outside the Israelis' evacuation zone there. A boy watches the bodies of people he knows being pulled out.
ليش بتعيط قاعد؟ ليش بتعيط انت؟
If every soul is a world of its own, in Gaza, whole galaxies are dying. Over the last 4 weeks or so, myself and colleagues have been reporting live from Israel here about this upcoming retaliatory attack on Iran. And the big question was always, would Benjamin Netanyahu stick to his promise to Joe Biden of just striking those military sites, thus reining in the possibility of an all-engulfing regional war? Well, tonight it appears that that is what he has done. He has stuck to that promise. Such is the twisted parallel universe of this conflict that a strike of this size can happen, and still the world lets out a sigh of relief.
Porrick in Tel Aviv, thank you very much indeed. Well, earlier I spoke to the Iranian academic Mohammad Marandi from the University of Tehran, who was close to the Iranian leadership. I began by asking how he thought the government of Iran might respond to Israel's strike.
There will definitely be a retaliation because the Israeli regime initiated this aggression. They bombed the embassy. The Iranians struck back to bring about deterrence. Then they assassinated Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. So the Iranians have struck back to bring about deterrence and to end this. But the Israeli regime is insistent on repeating aggression. So I think there's absolutely no doubt that Iran will strike back, and it will strike back substantially.
But if Iran didn't strike back at the moment, if you called it quits, then this whole spiral of violence might be over. And that's good for everyone, isn't it?
That's not what Netanyahu and the people around him are like. These people are carrying out a Holocaust in Gaza. They're vicious. They slaughter people every day. They have no moral boundaries, and they abide by zero commitments. They don't listen to their own allies in Washington who fund the genocide. So obviously the only way for the Iranians to stop this is to slap down Netanyahu. Otherwise, the only other solution would be for the West to yank hard on his leash, but they're not going to do that.
But Mr. Marandi, you know that if there was another strike against Israel by the Iranians, and this got more serious, the Americans would inevitably get involved on the Israeli side, and that could mean the defeat of your country, of your government.
No, Matt, that would be the defeat for the global economy. Because if the United States was foolish enough to get involved, the resistance in Iraq will kick the Americans out of the country. And all American bases in the region will be gone. And those regimes in the Persian Gulf that host American bases, those oil-rich dictatorships and gas-rich dictatorships, they will be seen as hostile. So you can say goodbye to oil and gas from our part of the world and goodbye to your economy.
The government in Tehran oppresses its own people, as we saw in recent years with the demonstrations, the peaceful demonstrations. They were brutally put down, with people executed and arrested. So I wonder what you're more afraid of if this escalation gets out of hand, your own people or the United States government, either under Kamala Harris or Donald Trump?
Matt, I can talk a lot about what goes on in Iran, but someone who works for a media outlet that is closing its eyes, as we speak, women are being slaughtered, not just in Gaza, but in the West Bank, in Syria, and of course in Lebanon. Your government is a part of this genocide, and journalists who are quiet, they're all implicit, they're all implicated. And Western diplomats, they're all implicated. They all have blood on their hands. And no matter how much perfume of Arabia you use on your hands, that blood is not going to go away.
Professor Marandi speaking to me from Tehran earlier. Well, joining me now is Amos Yadlin, who spent 5 years as the head of Israel's military intelligence. He joins me from central Israel. Thanks for coming on the program. I just want to start off with your reaction to what Professor Marandi there had to say, sort of speaking on behalf of the government in Tehran, saying that their counterstrike to Israel was now a matter of inevitability.
Let's wait and see. No doubt that the ball is in the Iranian court now. But when I listen to him, I wonder, he is connected to reality? Who initiated the war? Was it Israel, or was it a Hamas proxy from Gaza who murdered and raped and burned civilians in Israel on 7th of October last year? And who joined? The Iranian proxy from Lebanon, that they invested tens of billions of dollars to be able to attack Israel, what they did on the 8th of October. So after these two proxies were basically defeated in the last 2 months, and their leaders, the archi-terrorists, were eliminated, now Iran is attacking Israel with a barrage of 200 ballistic missiles, and they are now crying. He is connected to reality. So Israel has to react. Israel has to retaliate. Israel has to reestablish its deterrence. And I'm not sure the Iranians will continue to escalate. I saw today that they play down the results of the Israeli attack. And this is done by somebody who wants to close the scenario and not to escalate it.
But it is possible that they will escalate, and there are hardliners in the government in Tehran who want them to escalate and to retaliate. So where does this end? Because if they strike Israel, you're going to strike them back again, and on this goes. Where do you see this ending?
Yeah, I think Israel was listening very carefully to our American allies that ask us not to attack the Iranian oil facilities and not to attack the Iranian nuclear facilities. In case that the Iranians will retaliate, and it will be very soon after the election, so the Americans that see Iran as part of the axis of evil, giving weapon to Russia, having alliance with China, having relation with North Korea, the Americans will have anyway to reevaluate their policy against Iran after the election. So it can escalate, since I know that the leaders in Iran are thinking more rationally. Yes, then can threaten the international economy. Most of the oil that they will stop will not go to their alliance in China. But I think they will behave in a way that I will try to answer your question in a way that will end. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, just one more briefly, if I may. Prime Minister Netanyahu has seen Iran as the biggest problem for Israel in the region. Do you think that at the end of the day, that your Prime Minister actually wants an all-out war with Iran that would lead, he would hope, to the defeat of the Ayatollahs? Briefly.
I think Iran is the only UN member that call to destroy another UN member. And Iran is leading the genocide, not anybody else. So Netanyahu identified Iran many years ago. He will have to decide whether the next administration will go with him against the Iranian nuclear program, because this is the only existential threat to Israel, because these people want to destroy Israel. But this is not tomorrow. We will wait to the next administration.
Okay, got to leave it there. Amos Yadlin, thank you very much for coming on the show.